Much, Dolores. Gratitude.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to pass you. Lovely. I'll pass you to Jay.
Great. Thank you. Hi, Jay.
Well, hello, darling. Oh my goodness. It's one thing to watch your videos. It's another thing to be, I feel like my cheeks are flapping in the wind, you know? I've got this thing because I find, all the information, it's like you just get so mental, and I just put myself in your shoes and I think, how on earth is this woman doing what she is doing? And I'm with Jane, I'm a mother of 3. You're a grandmother, yes?
Oh, I'm a mother, not a grandmother yet, but I have a daughter.
Grandmother.
Not a grandmother yet, no.
So someone in our Freedom Tribe chat, they were commenting on a video that you spoke about earlier. The one with you with the on Guardia Shia Kona. Am I saying that right?
Right.
Roy, don't laugh at me. I'm doing my best where they wouldn't present their warrant oath cards. And I had to watch it several times, and not because of what you said and not because of anything other than I actually turned the video audio off. And I watched how you handled yourself, how you were so calm. You were so present and shockingly loving. You were educating them. And this is so foreign because it's so easy when we talk of these things, the immediate response is anger. If we talk about, the emotions that we're all feeling, myself as a parent, all of us all over the world for the injustice, especially the more we learn about what's happening, the natural emotions that rise are anger, bitterness, resentment, frustration. I've seen so many people, move to want to kill the they that we are speaking about. And the polarization has become so strong. And so when we see a beacon of light, such as yourself, walking in this way, demonstrating for us, I have a deep bow for you as a sister. And
that
I see
so kind of you. That's so kind. Yeah.
Well, it's not kind. I see it as just, I'm really honest because Dolores, we need each other. And I see your sadness. And I see your love. And I see your devotion and your commitment. But I see that you're weary. You're a weary warrior right now. And I feel that. And I feel that all of us on this call want to take the burden off of each other. That's why you're here. I know this is Grace's intention. And so I feel like I want to give to you in this moment and share with you how you're being spoken of within our chats. Because I said, I'm going on with Dolores. Let me know, what questions you have. Where are you guys at? We've got, common law chats and all sorts of chats dependent on topic. But this is our Freedom Tribe chat, which is really about freedom on all levels, but specifically where it pertains to common law. Someone says, she handles it perfectly. Most wouldn't. I wouldn't, sadly. I know, right? Almost 40 years ago, our small town librarian who survived Dachau told me, you will see Nazism come to Canada in your lifetime. I'm already seeing the seeds. She was crying. It was seared into my brain. I was about 6 years old. She was the only survivor of 7 kids. The dichotomy of tears and a voice absolutely devoid of emotion to this day remains the most terrifying thing I've ever felt. And the cause of it is at our gates. There is more good than evil in the world. Peace and love to you all. Isn't that something?
That's beautiful.
And the way that the people that see you and what you're doing, the way they speak of you goes on. Dolores is a beautiful example of truth, of embodiment, of power. Power doesn't need to be aggressive. Power doesn't need to be evasive. Power doesn't need to hurt. We can be in our truth and embodied in our sovereign power in peace. Power can be gentle. Power can be silent presence. Power can be loving. There's been a lot of distortion of what embodying power and standing in power is. We now come back to the truth of power, which is pure truth embodied. And this truth embodied is nurturing, loving, patient, and strong. It sees, it is compassionate, it is intuitive, and it is unafraid. It is a loving presence. So, and it goes on. I won't go on, but I wanted to give you that gift, Dolores, because it is such a special thing that there's so many that do see you. And my questions really stem from this place, because there have been so many questions flooding in when I said I was going to be on the call with you. Overwhelmingly so, a lot of technical questions, but I felt like I really want the audience to see, you know, where you birthed your awakening, because it wasn't recently. You said this was something that started 20 years ago for you. And I really want to understand, and I know the audience will really want to understand, what was this prompting for you? What was it that birthed you to start to question what we were seeing in the world?
Well, that's beautifully put, by the way, Jay. Thank you. I have tears in my eyes. And maybe just before I answer that, I think where it worked for me is that, you know, in the natural law, right? Even though we talk about common law, we have this natural law, universal law, then common law. But in the natural law, it's about the embodiment of that you do no harm, which is like the basis of a lot of the spiritual dimension and the religious element, you know? Mm-hmm. And really the natural law comes from act in honor, do no harm, you know, which is from a loving place. And what really, even though I don't talk about it, but it has been something that has guided me all of my life is, and I've studied what's going on, you know, much longer really than 20 years, but essentially what we are coming up against is evil. You know, people are deceiving us and usurping the goodness in people for all of our lives and for a few hundred years. And how they do that is to lie to people and deceive them and cause fear. And so when you realize it's about evil and fear and how they use hundreds of years of psychology to exactly manipulate good, loving people to do things that they would not do unless they were manipulated and lied to and deceived, you know? And so they have learned how to do this for hundreds of years. And there are many studies, you know, Professor Jordan Peterson from Canada is one of my heroes. And he came out, you know, and I studied him from, I think it was October 2016, when he had his issues in the university around free speech. And I had my issues, you know, before, during, and after his issues. But what he was the expert in and explained it magnificently is how he used a lot of the analogies of the Soviet Union and in Germany, how loving fathers and mothers can actually, you know, in a short period of time, without, you know, seemingly still functioning as men and women, end up on a daily basis injecting people or killing people. And when you understand that the basis of what's going on is an evil manipulation of the psychology to play on people's fears, including the fear of death or the fear of being ridiculed or the fear of not being able to look after your family or pay your debts or your mortgages, you really realize that the only way to overcome what's going on is to recognize the evil, you know, inform yourself of how it works, including the psychological manipulation and the fear, which is why we say, you know, fear of climate change, fear of terrorism, fear of dying, you know, of the whole medical thing, of banking, economic collapse. But the only way that we can overcome this is by facing our own fears, including the fear of death, or of reputational damage, and to literally stand in love and forgive them, forgive as well our family members that may not want to hear the truth, because unfortunately, it's not just the truth about COVID-19. That once you start going down the rabbit hole of COVID-19, you realize that the very fundamental fabric of our society is based on deception and lies, and that the lawful system of police are not holding them to account. And I think a lot of the people who don't want to, engage in discussion with people is that in their core, they know that there's huge wrong going on, and they would almost wear the mask and take the PCR test and even take the injection or vaccination, because they are literally afraid to have it exposed that the people that they trust on the news every day, the people that they trust that they are their doctors and their teachers, are all lying to them. So the solution then is, we are facing evil, and it's really a good versus evil battle. And so I have had to train myself to realize that people need hope, and that if we who are trying to explain what's going on, if we put it across in an angry way, or we are even trying to look for vengeance, that we are actually playing into the globalists' hands. Because what the globalists sadly want is, and why they are undermining the police and the rule of law, and why they are particularly targeting mothers, grandmothers, and children at these freedom events and rallies around the world, is that they want to use the undermining of the police as an excuse for even more draconian police. Police that come out with guns and that attack even more the people that are challenging it. And they literally want chaos, and they want a destruction in society. So once you realize that, then there is a duty on people who really understand to be even more loving, even more patient, and then just say the basis of all this is the rule of law, and trust in the police, and to come out and say everyone are our brothers and sisters. Now, of course, though, we do have to hold these people to account. And I am at the forefront. I've been trained as a peace constable myself. I'm training peace constables in Ireland. I'm working with, representatives of the military and the veterans. And we do need to hold these people. They may have to go to prison for 10 years, but we're not doing it in a retribution way. We are doing it in a way that for these people, even if they don't go to prison for us, that these people will be imprisoned for the rest of their lives in their own minds and in their own hearts for the wrong that they have done. So I suppose the basis as well of the natural law is, it's almost like goodness and evil is circulating in the world. It's part of the life force, and it's part of the spiritual dimension, and even the subconscious, because even if you're nonverbal and you're a baby of a few months old and wrong is done to the baby, or you see wrong done to someone else, it resonates to your core. And so the solution of all this then is to speak to people's subconscious, or their right and wrong, and to just say, no, I will uphold my inalienable rights and freedoms. I will not do evil. I will not coerce somebody into doing something that they don't want, and no one should coerce me. So why I've remained hopeful is that when you realize it's a psychological, a propaganda war, they are doing evil, the solution of it then is to be loving and calm and patient. And I guess I've been preparing for this for a long time.
I was going to say,
yeah.
It's clearly it's not your first rodeo. That's evident. You're playing the long game. And Dr. David Martin, who I have also a tremendous amount of respect for, I recently heard him speaking to this, and he was speaking about how from a very interesting perspective. I've not heard him often speak from, but he was speaking from the place of saying that, light is a spectrum, and that all darkness is really just the lack of light. So somewhere on that spectrum, we're playing within this realm. So stay away from the polarization that we tend to do as human beings, because this is really playing into their hand, as you say. It's really the game that they want us to play, which is to become divided on all fronts. And right now, the movement that we have, our Changemaker movement through Thrive Tribes Global, is really aimed at focusing on the solutions in every sector, all 12 sectors of major human endeavor, which is really interesting because each person is viewing this through a different lens. And we covered about, 8 of those lenses today, which include the perspective from the financial viewpoint, the perspective from the health viewpoint, the perspective from oh, exactly. I mean, there's so many viewpoints within which we can do this. So what we've done with the tribes is we've almost created something that allows us an ascension process through the evolution of an awakening, because everyone's at a different place. And if you understand that, then we can honor that. And I see that you understand that, and it's beautiful. When we have people come into Truth Tribe, Dolores, and they're learning about the truth, they can't get out of bed for 3 weeks. If they really are open to hearing it, they don't, this is shocking to them. It's like they get punched in the stomach. But eventually they progress and they move into Freedom Tribe, which is the solutions, because people can only wait around in the problems for so long until they say, what are we going to do about it? So I want to just dive right into Freedom Airways. This is a fascinating venture. So many of my people, tell us about Freedom Airways. What is it about? What does it look like? Give us the full download, please, Dolores.
Yes, thank you very much. So I have been looking, I guess the thing is, if you've been awake for decades as well, in a way, I'm a little bit frustrated that there isn't a banking system already. There isn't a freedom media, that like many of us who have been awake, including me, probably should have done much more work to have things set up already before. But Freedom Travel Alliance was basically launched because SAS would not honor my ticket. I think it was October 2020. And I just thought, okay, these companies that are not infringing our inalienable rights are committing criminal acts of coercion, unlawful behavior. But also we need to, in the R. Buckminster Fuller way, right, build a new model and make the old one obsolete. So then I was saying that if you had Freedom Airways, and I had an interview the next day, that you would also not have a legacy that people would be potentially suing you in the future, right? Because it was known that mass reduced oxygen, if people who are sick or are on long flights, that would be detrimental to their health. So people will make claims against their indemnity insurance in the future if they coerce them into injections with adverse events. The pilots and the people who fly can sue the airlines, right? Because they're actually the ones coercing them into doing it. The Freedom Travel Alliance is then done with other people who had the same idea and contacted me. Susan Sweeten, Kevin Jenkins, and Tara Thornton. All of them are involved in urban global health and in Freedom Angels, and were extremely well connected in the freedom community in the world. And so we set up a membership model then in January 2021. And the members already get assistance if you want to travel anywhere in the world, with say from South Africa to Canada, that you can get. We have 8 people now employed, either part-time or full-time, and members can get information for how can you travel and avoid PCR testing or avoid wearing masks. But we did have about 2 weeks ago our first international flight from Ghana in Africa to Florida, which is cool. And we're setting up trying to do regular flights between Florida and the Caribbean. And also we're looking for, I think there's a flight between Dublin and Mexico. And we want to have regular flights in the next few weeks and months between Belfast and London. And you can charter a flight anywhere in the world. We have made a strategic alliance. So you can go from Timbuktu to Cape Town, or from whatever, San Diego to California, but that is very expensive, right? But so what we're trying to do is at least challenge and break down and support countries where they are already, court cases have been won so that people can travel unmasked and unvaccinated. But then the thing is, we may end up taking flights to, if the flight is blocked, to then have court cases, or to establish between continents routes that people can go from North America, we'll say, to Europe, and then that people will say into Austria or countries that are open, and then people can go on public transport or hire a car in order to go outside Europe. So, and as well, we see that a lot of the pilots that were injected are now on some airlines being told, and some regulators, they can't no longer fly as pilots because they have an increased risk of clotting and death, so they can't be professional pilots. And we also saw that coming in Freedom Travel Alliance, and we are supported by many pilots and crew and unions around the world that they want to have an employer that will mean they won't have to get vaccinated, so that they can fly as pilots for the next 10, 20 years as well. So it's taken us, we started off in January 2021 as a company, and we're also looking into long-term leasing of multiple airlines, and have done an arrangement with airline owners so that we can have our own planes. And my long-term plan is to start buying up airports, because it is the cheapest time to buy airports. And the globalists have this plan for the next decades. So that we need to have a long-term plan as well, to have at least in each continent, and in each region, so that people can still fly and do business and go on holidays. So that is, I suppose, and what there is huge opportunity as well for businesses in health, and I think, and I would be, if anyone maybe putting out a call again, I think we should be systematically taking claims against doctors privately, and against coroners and politicians that are engaged in this criminal coercion, or not giving prevention and treatment, or writing down inaccurate results for PCR tests or on death certs. And I think there is an industry for claiming on harm for the masks, for children in school, for people traveling. And I know that kind of sounds strange, but if we don't make it financially hurt doctors and politicians and lawyers and coroners that are going along with this unlawful agenda, they will never change, their professional activity. And I think we also only need a few precedence court cases against coroners, against people that should be doing autopsies, and against doctors and lawyers and airlines, in order to give precedence cases that people can sue doctors who don't give proper treatment, and the coroners, in order to change what they're doing. So this cannot happen again in the years to come.
This is brilliant. I feel that there's so much more I could ask you, Dolores. There's so much more. There's so much more I would love to connect with you on, but we're getting on in time on our time together. But I do want to leave you with this thought from, again, Dr. David Martin. He talks about how in the fat years, no one was listening to him, but he knew this was coming, and he was speaking to audiences and it wasn't landing. No one was receiving the information. And he said it was incredibly painful because he wanted to give people time to prepare. But of course, people didn't want to hear it. And unfortunately, I find human nature often isn't until we're forced into a situation of what he refers to as the 7-year now famine. We've just gone through the first year of it, and he figures we have another 6 years, that this cycle that we're in of awakening, of seeing the shadows, is a good thing, that through seeing them we can then heal them, move through them, and create, like Buckminster Fuller, these more beautiful, vibrant, thriving communities based in humans who can reclaim their birthrights. And knowing how to do that comes through education. We're going to have a Future of Freedom Summit coming up. It's going to be featuring all 12 sectors and speakers within all 12 of those sectors, so we can meet people where they're at, so that we can really be in their lane and speak their language. And I would be absolutely delighted, Dolores, if you would join us at that summit.
Oh, I would love to do it. And I think I totally thank you so much. And that's a beautiful perspective. And I do agree with David Martin and with you. I think even in a historical sense, in 20 years, in 50 years, in 100 years, I think people will see that what's going on now is a transition from the old world of deception and an age of poisoning and of lies and untruths and cover up and coercion, to a world where, you know, truth and freedom will prevail, and there will be whole new industries. And I do think there is the solution as well is a psychological approach to make people robust, and to really overcome their fears, and including the fear of death, right? So if you overcome your fears, right, and face them head on, and maybe your fears of losing money. And I think a lot of the people standing up would have had multiple jobs in their lives, you know, where they may have gone bankrupt, they may have been decimated by the previous financial crash, lost everything, and carried on, exactly like many of us. And that and that those of us who have, you know, over, you know, faced, we'll say, death, or, you know, been in comas or whatever, that when you go through that, or a financial death or a reputational death, or have to face terminal illness, that then once you overcome that, you realize, and that is again the spiritual dimension and the natural law, and kind of karma, is that really, you know, there is a life force within all of us, and that we don't really die, you know, that we all actually embody or add to whatever the life force or the supernatural or spiritual force. And that is part of how we overcome the fear, you know. And then when you are not afraid of dying, you then are not afraid of living. And then the natural law, you realize the significance of just freedom of speech, you know, freedom to travel and meet your family or to do business, freedom of assembly, and that your home is literally your castle, and that you have a right to privacy and a right to have peace, and that nobody dressed up as a police has the right to infringe on any of those rights. And that is simply the solution of what is happening. And once you simply know that, right, which is embedded in the common law and the rule of law, then anyone, it doesn't matter if they are, you know, some politician or 10 police lined up with masks, it's very easy to say, no, I have the right to go to this meeting. I have the right to travel. You cannot coerce me into anything, PCR. I don't have to tell you. You are no way in hell are you going to quarantine me into some hotel, and I'm not paying you for testing or tracking, or, you know, you can, anything you come near. And so in a way, I think the beauty, and David Martin is right, nobody was really listening to us. And, you know, the globalists over decades tried to make free speech synonymous with something that was hateful, you know, or something that was a bad thing. And really, it's so simple, the natural law. Our societies have worked for generations and thousands of years. And that's why they are so putting so much pressure on the English speaking community, right? It's because the rule of law, and we have to thank the English for the, you know, the way that they have embodied the law. And in our Irish ancestry with Brehon law, and I guess it's in our blood, right? In many of the English speaking communities, it seems to resonate more, is that we embody freedom. And, you know, when you're saying, for me, you were saying, where did it come from? That I grew up on a small farm, but we actually knew as children we were free, and no one could come onto our farm. No one could tell us what to do. And the way to win this is to actually educate children, you know, and try to have like a freedom scouting movement where children are just inspired to say, no, you have value. Each unique person is really an embodiment of the force of love, and that no one can force you to do something that you don't want to do. You are a free person. You can travel the world, meet everybody with love. And that's why the embodiment of the natural law and the common law is act in honor, do no harm. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. And it's really simple. So, you know, when we talk about solutions, the solution is just to say, we are free. No one can take away our freedom, and love one another. And that is really the solution to what's going on. So that's why I have no fear. And David Martin is entirely right. It might take us 7 years. I think it may take a bit longer, maybe 10 or 20 years to really build up the kind of societies that we want. But I think children born in the 2030s and afterwards will be much healthier, will be much stronger psychologically. They will not have to, have the assault in the education system of lies and deception for their whole lives. And I think in a historical sense, 2020 and 2021 will be seen even in 1,000 years' time as the pivot from really 1,000 years of lies and deception to, I think, going into a millennium of freedom and truth. So I have great hope.
We are
I'm
really
great hope for the future.
we are really at a pinnacle, at a turning point. And I know all of us who are really plugged into this ideation feel that, Dolores, people may not have been watching before, but they're watching now. And
Thank you.
and we're here, we're supporting you. You bear a responsibility because of who you are and your knowledge, your expertise, your years of education and deep diving into you were very modest when you described yourself at the beginning, because we could have done half the interview on your accomplishments throughout your lifetime. But you come with such humility, and you come as a sister. And I appreciate you immensely. I look forward to talking about solutions moving forward, how we can build, how we can create, and really look to those thriving communities. I speak for the children. I'm a passionate mother. I get excited about that, but I'm also aware that we need to be awareness about where we're at and how we can be proactive in solving some of the biggest issues we face today. So thank you for bridging that gap. And I know that instead of talking about the bridge, that you're building it, Dolores. So may the force be with you. We'll be in touch.
We'll be in touch, and I'd love to be involved in that conference that you have as well. Thank you so much. God bless.
God bless.
Wow. As it is done, as it is said, we are free now and always in divine grace. We thank you, Dolores, for everything that you are doing. And I also like to thank Susan Sweden, Sherry, Kevin Jenkins, Michelle from Dr. Tempeni's office, because they helped me, made it possible that you could finally read my email or my request so you could be with us. And we all love them too. Kevin has been with us. Sherry Tempton has been with us. And thank you for everything. And of course, to our audience, we apologize that we have to say goodbye temporarily. And they made sure that I say that, because sometimes when we sign off, they're still waiting. They're still waiting. So we have to give Professor Dolores Cahill a rest, because, she just finished from a podcast and now to us. And yes, please come back again. And for audience, please, if you really are moved with what we shared and you need to be inspired and empower others, all you have to do is share this. Okay? So thank you, and thank
you also for the opportunity, and thank you for spending time with me tonight. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. It's lovely. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
You too. It was a real pleasure. Thank you, Dolores. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.